Hey everyone, how's it going? Another QEDTalks here, and I have the lead creator and designer of Ganza Gaming, Christopher Negelein. Welcome into QEDTalks, and we're going to get into this a little bit. Well, we might as well start out. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're up to.
What I'm currently up to is about 6 foot. So now I've got the dad joke out.
You gotta have one.
But I work as a day job as a nurse, but in my evenings, I make content for RPGs, tabletop RPGs. Slight digression, I can't wait till we get rid of the tabletop because it's the original game. The other games and video games should be called computer or console RPGs. Get rid of the tabletop. It was the original.
Not only that, but I've been seeing so often lately people being like, oh, I really like these RPG games. That's what the G stands for.
Exactly. You might know me as mentioned before, Ganza Gaming. So I've done quite a bit of community content for Cypher. That's where I kind of got started. I'm very humbled that I've got 5-star ratings, and I even have a gold PDF, which is called Mortal Fantasy, which lets you put your D&D archetypes into Cypher. As well as a couple of actual 5e things I've done. They also have 5 stars, but they don't get as much play because that is a very saturated market. I've done some community content for also Tiny D6 and also Fantasy Age from Green Ronin. A lot of the Tiny D6 stuff won a contest from the company. And nice. Let's see, I have also been humbled and honored to be a stretch goal for the Diamond Throne setting, which takes the D20 setting Monty Cook had for his Unearthed Arcana and turn it to Cypher. And that's coming out soonish, hopefully very soon whenever this hits YouTube. And let's see, because I lose track. I've also been blessed being one of the pilot program people for the upcoming open license for Cypher System, or Cypher System Open License, as they like to call it.
Oh yeah, bad name, but great concept.
And I'm the one I thought that came up with the bad names. So the one that people I'm really excited for, and it's my Kickstarter plan for next year, is the Mystery Flesh Pit National Park RPG. Though I have some things that are coming even before that, such as a kind of a Last of Us sort of Resident Evil style post-apocalyptic game called Ballooned Earth. And I have a couple of fantasy things in the mix, just so that when I start getting kind of burned out doing cosmic horror and personal zombie horror, I can, just do some fantasy.
I get that. Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat. Like I've got sort of like my 3 projects on the go is the Cypher Foundation one, which you've already kind of seen a little teaser bit of it. And then I've got like 2 settings that are very, very different from each other so that I don't get trapped and just sort of hyper focus in one area and shit. And
well, I'm the opposite way. I need 3 or 4 projects because whatever I want to work on, that is not the one I'm going to have. Yeah. You'd be like, I want to work on this project. Oh, I get an idea for the other thing. That's my trick. So I distract myself with other projects, so I still get ahead on something, regardless of what I have planned for you.
Now, I'll preface this by saying I'm not sponsored by him in any way or anything like that. I just picked up his book for Mortal Fantasy, and it's polished. It is good shit. It's not expensive. You should probably pick it up if you're at all interested in wanting to do something D&D-esque without the trappings of D&D, which I'm not saying it's a horrible RPG. It's a great RPG. But there are better tools out there that may fit a lot of other playstyles a lot better, and this lets Cypher fit that while still being in that comfortable realm. So, yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was pretty cool.
And the Cypher Unlimited Discord, the moderator Char, she was really great. I have done a pretty decent job with Mortal Fantasy and layout design and self-editing, but she took it to the next level. So I want to give a little shout out to her as well.
Oh, she did a lot of your editing. Oh, that's nice. Everyone there has been amazing. I've loved Cypher Unlimited. I've been just happy since I've joined that community. I don't know how long ago it was now, but it's been great. It's been absolutely great.
It's a great welcoming community, and if you have Cypher questions, it's a great place to go. It is a nice oasis from the toxicity of a lot of other places.
They handle it really well. And if you guys are wondering what Cypher Unlimited is about, one of my previous QEDTalks was with Spigs, one of the leaders of Cypher. I've also been on their little talk show thing, so you can check out theirs. There's like links to it in the video with him, so go ahead and check it out for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm double underscoring that with an exclamation.
And I will mention, if you're watching this on the YouTubes, which you probably will be, there are links for everything Ganza Gaming related down below. Check out in the doobly-doo. And there will be all sorts of good, just to follow along and see what new projects are coming out, because there's some pretty exciting stuff. All good things.
I'm gonna hit on a little tangent real quick.
Always.
You used the magic word doodly-doo.
Yeah.
I
doobly-doo, yeah.
Where did you pick that up?
Oddly enough, like, I had heard it before. Someone had said it a long time ago, but I only started using it after I heard Matt Colville start saying it.
Also, I think, Matt Colville and a couple of others, I've heard it. I'm like, where's this word coming from? I mean, I love it. I love the word.
I don't even know. I'm like, I'm just hanging on that wagon as it came by me. I've heard it for years, but it was only after Matt Colville started using it, and I'm like, I just started saying it, and then that was even before I started like being serious about the YouTube channel, and I just say it now, and now it's a thing. All right.
Sorry.
We're gonna have a lot of those. If you ever watch any of my other videos, the QEDTalks, there's always a lot of tangents. Sometimes I don't even ask half the questions I have written down because we just run out of time. All right, so getting into this, I have like my standard baseline just to sort of like get where each of the guests are with each other and everything. So let's start with back in the day, as you probably are an elder gamer like me. How did you get to first hear about RPGs? Like even before you started playing necessarily, just like how did you first hear about it? And did you have any preconceived notions about what these games were about?
No, because it was not the internet, and it was not my friends. I went to a Boy Scout camp, and some guys were playing it there. And we were like really guerrilla in the rough, because it was like, pads of notepad paper, pen, and we didn't even have dice. So we made tiny little chits and put them in envelopes that we were supposed to be using to mailing letters to our families back home to let them know that we're, alive at Boy Scout camp, And, I remember like my first little dungeon was like, the next day I was making a dungeon. And I was making like kind of what I thought looked like a natural cavern, sort of setup. So it was basically, open space tunnel, all of it kind of. And, the game master guy looked at it and was like, oh, no, that's not how we do dungeons. And he did, kind of your more standard,
grid,
boxes and rectangles connected to each other with doors and secret doors sort of thing. I was like, okay. But yeah, they mentioned orcs and flaming swords. And I had already, just a couple of years earlier, had gone through all the Jules Verne. And there was kind of like a library / storage spot in my grandparents' house, and that's where I discovered the famous little bookcase set, pronounce things today. The slipcase set of Lord of the Rings. Read that like it was nothing.
Yeah, I mean that's like the standard fantasy that kind of like started it all.
So yeah, and then after that, this will certainly date me. I bugged my parents until I could get the red box from Sears and Roebuck mail order catalog.
Wow. I mean, the red box is my first as well, although second edition was out by that point. So like but yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get being dated with that shit. And there's going to be a lot of people watching this that play D&D that are going, what do you mean red box? What?
Well, for the guys that are really, are that age, it was the Larry Elmore cover, if that helps you figure out which version I got introduced to.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you love Earl Otis, that's great for you. But I know it just never really got me as well as like just Larry Elmore was kind of like my, fantasy touchstone when it comes to that sort of imagery and stuff.
I'll have to look up which was which and if there's a difference or anything. I'm not sure. To me, it's just like the red box was always the red box. I can't remember if there's a difference in them.
There is, but that'll just take up the rest of the discussion.
All right. Yeah. No, I was. It's interesting how everyone started in slightly different ways. Like I've had people on this that have started within the last year. I actually introduced them to it, and they've played basically only like 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And then I've had people from like different genres that have played other games, and in general, it seems most people started with Dungeons and Dragons. It kind of was like, the OG, like the default. Although I do remember in the 90s, like I was young still, but going to conventions and stuff and being like, yeah, we just play D&D. And like at that point, D&D was kind of waning. Like TSR was not keeping it up so well. And like people at the conventions are like, oh, you still play that one? And so there's so many people nowadays, I find that they see D&D as like the only RPG out there and not realizing there's so many more. Whereas like when I started playing, like D&D was just one tool amongst the toolbox. And if anything, it was one of the aging tools that people weren't using as often.
Well, I went from Redbox to Gamma World to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then when I got into college, I was in a really funky AD&D game. But then, Storyteller started taking over really quick after that point.
TMNT, that's one of the few Palladium products I think I actually liked. Like, it was pretty good.
Eric Wiechik was great. Yeah, he passed away way too soon. He's also the guy that did the Amber Diceless game. Those who go like Amber Diceless. So that's two things. One is Amber is a universe done by Roger Zelazny, which was basically you were following gods. Basically, this royal family that controlled the true one dimension in the universe called Amber, and everything, including our Earth, was a pale reflection, but they could shift among those reflections. And Amber Diceless, that you play it, and the concept was it had to be Diceless because anything that could be remotely mundane, you could do because you were a god.
Yeah.
The only time you would start failing if somebody was another demigod was trying to mess with your stuff. So, and it, it's just a great read anyway, because it has some GMing tips that you can use, with your dice or without your dice. So, but yeah, something you could check out if you can.
They really, really experimented with stuff back in the day. I mean, thankfully these days people are starting to experiment again. There was like that little while where everyone was just kind of stuck in that like 3.x D&D, like everything is structured like this these days.
The D20 glut. Oh yeah, Alter Soren is another company you should check out because Mike Pondsmith was doing a lot of stuff that would be considered indie today, and was awesome then. If that name doesn't ring a bell, Mike Pondsmith, or Alter Soren, one of their games should, Cyberpunk 2020, which is the inspiration for Cyberpunk 77.
Yeah, and of course the modern RPG version of it, Cyberpunk Red. Which I have mixed feelings on. I love Cyberpunk so much, but there are things in the rules I feel like were kind of bloat that didn't need to be there. But I mean, he is so much awesome with it. Sometimes you can kind of overlook it. But like,
if there's extra bloat, that can be just optional rules.
Yeah. Well, things like the rise and fall off of the weapons charts in Cyberpunk Red. Like if he's this far, then I get this bonus. But if he's a little bit farther, it goes up. But then if he's a little bit farther, it goes back down. I'm like, oh.
So that's some old holdover from 1980s, 1990s style gaming, where simulationism was really big.
Yeah, that's the thing is there's a big difference between, I find a lot of the newer RPGs these days tend to be a little more towards the narrative side and a little less towards the crunchy side. You
can also spin it as not narrative, because to some degree, I'm trying to get away from using more literary terms for our gaming. It's like, instead of like a story, you're having an experience.
I like that.
And a perfect example of that is, a game should emulate what you want, because you're never going to get anything that, simulation in particular, you're never going to get the perfect simulation in a role-playing game. Too many dice, too many variables, but you can emulate the feel of something.
Well, and also, as I find a lot of GMs try to control it as if it's a book or a movie, but it's not a book or a movie. And I say that the GM writes the plot, but the players write the script. Well, the players and the dice really write the script. And it's not a movie. You can take inspiration from them, but you can't run it like that. It's not how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. If anything, I would say that it's closer to social jazz than it is a movie.
Yeah. And I like to use the word GM Aikido or player Aikido, where it's like the yes and philosophy from improv and whatnot. Take it and go with it. Take it and go with it. So I've had a lot of different types of guests on the show, mostly people that are just active in playing RPGs, although Spigs and the other guys from Cypher Unlimited have been doing some content creation, obviously, as well. But you're the first I've had on that I can really say is more of like a devoted developer of RPG content. So you've your series of like Cypher books and Drive Through RPG, which once again, as we mentioned, beautifully formatted. Just great. Now, You focus primarily on designing in the Cypher system, which is about to get that huge boost with the open license. What is it that draws you primarily for that system right now?
Well, for Cypher right now, what draws me is I know it really well. But the question would be more, why did I do Cypher in the first place? Because Cypher was my first community content stuff. Mm-hmm. And I felt more comfortable, tweaking the rules and playing with things in Cypher than I did in 5e. And maybe that was a holdover because, 3.x, 3.5, Pathfinder, those things have math, and the math is all kind of interconnected. So when you start playing with things, you can't, you have to kind of double check your stuff. Mm-hmm. The other people with the open license, the Marlowe House, they won awards for doing Pathfinder stuff. Why are they doing Cypher stuff? Partially because Pathfinder's exhausting when you design for it all the time. They wanted a break.
It's too easy to break.
And no bad, wrong fun. This is not me saying Pathfinder's bad. This is not me saying that, or one or,
I got a shelf full of Pathfinder books over there.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I got a shelf full of Pathfinder books over there. It's not bad. It's just not always the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And the issue I have with a game usually isn't the game. It's usually with players I interact with who have I just have run into a lot of Pathfinder, bros who want to wear, how cool Pathfinder is than everything else. And just after a while, I guess I have an underdog aspect. You keep saying whatever you're doing is better than what I'm doing. I'm going to start.
Yeah. I get that.
Getting my hackles up a little bit. Low hanging fruit, I guess. But yeah, I just felt more comfortable. And 5e was kind of, cool. I played it here and there, but I wasn't really majorly into it at the time. Ironically, I'm now with two other great guys at Alligator Alley Entertainment. Rich Lescaffer, who's a freelancer for Wizards of the Coast, made his own sci-fi 5e game called Esper Genesis. And he lets me play in his sandbox, and I appreciate that.
Nice.
So now I have a better, understanding of 5e. I can still do it, but I still would have to do just a little bit of research, get a little bit up to speed. Cypher, at this point, I have very big comfort level compared to I feel comfortable enough to start trying to do a thing and make a thing to woo. I could make types all day for Cypher. In fact, the secret to being exhausted about types isn't making the types. It's about making 20 different choices for a random background. That's the exhausting part.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done content for D&D, and I'm in the middle of doing content for Cypher, and D&D takes longer. It took me a couple of years to put together the book I did for D&D, which has a class in it and subclasses and a bunch of races and stuff like that. And I feel like I've achieved almost an equal amount of work on the Cypher content I'm working on within just a few months. It's just there's less homework you've got to do to balance the things. It's not that it's better per se. It's just that it's a more streamlined system in a lot of ways. It doesn't have as much crunch to it, which, I mean, sometimes you want that crunch, but sometimes it's just nicer just to have a few less rules to have to deal with.
And some people want different levels of crunch. A perfect example is Monty Cook Games has a whole book of crunch for you of making and repairing and communities, and you've got and they've got a really simplified version or you can put together a really simplified version in Cypher Revised. But you've got a great middle ground. I like your rules.
Thanks. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to add that little bit extra for those that want that, but at the same time not going overboard with it. Next thing you know, it's going to turn into rifts, and then everyone's going to hate life. So, I'm sorry, I have no love of rifts. It's just
the universe or the
no. I love the universe. I love the setting, but even Kevin Smidia has said multiple times, and I've even actually got to speak with him before, and he knows the rules are a mess, and he just doesn't want to fix them. He just keeps saying, "Well, I'll add it to the list." Yeah.
So as you know, that they also have an alternate rule system now for Rifts, Savage Worlds, and the answer was how did you talk Kevin into letting you use Savage Worlds? And the answer was well, first I started by not saying I thought his system sucked. I said I wanted to bring his universe to more people.
I love the universe, but I'm sorry, Kevin, if you ever see this for some reason. The original Rifts, Palladian stuff was a mess. You have to know this. You've got to know this. But it was amazing at the same time. I mean, I played it for years. It was still amazing. And sometimes you love the engineer in me. I went to schools for engineering and stuff. And the engineer in me likes to get into the rules and dabble in the rules and find all the little cool shit to try and pick out, even if it's a bit messy. But a lot of players are not in that mind space. And it does not work out for a lot of people.
Some are. I took the Marvel Superhero Saga system, which is when you use the cards, you need to use dice as a role-playing game. And I adapted it to Rifts. You can make characters in 5 minutes, and you could have these awesome dramatic battles in 10, 15 minutes. And my players hated it. They wanted all the fiddly bits and all the character creation so they could prove they had all these, percentages and points and then kick butt that way.
Yeah. So sometimes you want that. You don't always sometimes you want the crunchier game where you kick down the door, kill shit, awesome. And then sometimes you want the whole Matt Mercer Critical Role, be narrative and that type of thing. But that's, as long as people don't realize that's all RPGs are and that's all that people want, sometimes you just want to stab the goblin in the face.
100%. When I get really tactical, I kind of slide into just flat out doing a war game. But I mean, if you want to get more tactical with your RPGs, go for it. I've done it before, but like I said, they just starts making me want to go, I have one guy. I can have 20.
I mean, that's where it started, right? Chainmail was what D&D was basically based off of. For anyone wondering what the hell we'd be talking about here, there's videos about the history of D&D. Go watch them. But basically, the Dungeons & Dragons was a bunch of guys that played war games that were hey, what if instead of units of people, we play one person and they have a history? And it's set in Lord of the Rings.
One figure representing one person was still mind-blowing.
Yeah.
That wasn't even a thing then. That was every model represented an entire squad of people.
Yeah. So it has its roots in wargaming. Then it became more and more narrative, and then people realized, oh yeah, and then we can add a grid to this, and we can battle maps, and then it became more wargaming again. It's waves. I feel it goes in and out in waves. Now, what would you say are some of your biggest tips for those trying to actually pump out the good quality content for the community? Because I see you've got a number of books.
At one time in the early days, I was 50% of their content. I think I'm now 15% because I've been pulled into these bigger projects, so I don't kick out the smaller projects like I used to. So for community content, the thing I want to tell people first is, I know it's exciting that you want to do a thing and it's cool, but you have to slow down and do your homework. Read the guidelines. And the guidelines that you see for Cypher and other community content projects, the ones you read are the ones that are there. They aren't like suddenly errated somewhere. I mean, I guess I'm because I have people that come up to me and they go like, well, I noticed that some people have, little fine print at the bottom of their covers and some people don't. So since there's those ones that don't have, does that mean I don't have to do it anymore? I'm like, did you even check the dates of the two covers to see which one was newer or older? No, you didn't. No, the answer is, I guess you want to skip a step, and this gives you an internal justification to do that. But no, the fine print still belongs down there. Hasn't changed yet. If you look at the guidelines, you would get your answers. My other big thing is, especially if you're starting to learn layout and design and things like that, the more organized you are up front, all the organization you do up front is going to pay off in making things flow much smoother towards the back end when you get closer to being finished. And things always take longer than you think. It takes longer to write than you think it's going to take. It takes longer to do layout and design than you think. So just finishing a PDF and having it, in 2 columns and, in some pictures in here and there, consider yourself proud. It's okay. And, with all that said, don't wait for the white moment either. Do your homework, start doing it, and start making something. You're going to make mistakes. Everybody does. I mean, I've had my mistakes called out in a panel. And the only thing that saved me from total embarrassment is I knew what they were talking about, and I knew it was me. And then when I got home from the convention,
it's getting fixed. I was planning this all along.
Yeah. Now, community content bonus. You kind of under the banner of the company, especially for like DM's Guild when you're doing D&D, it's official content. It's official D&D stuff, so you can use a lot of their worlds. Again, go back to the guidelines to find out which worlds you can do and which ones can't, because it's not an open book. Same thing for Cypher. There are some Cypher settings you can use. Now, some are still not available. Right off the bat, if you're a fan of The Strange, just stop right there. Strange is not open yet. No. If it will ever be. And that's the Monty Cook Games decision when and where, and I fully respect it. Would I love it if they opened it? Yes. But if they have better plans for it, more power to them.
And I gotta say that even with the open license coming out, like, 1, wait for it, guys. And 2, when it comes out, please read it carefully. Open license doesn't mean just like, oh, it's all open, we can do what we want. No. They've already said it's just like the core the core rulebook systems and stuff like that. Like, wait till it's out and read it carefully, because it doesn't just mean all Monty Cook Games stuff is going to be open field. Like, that's not how it's going to work.
So but get out there and do your things, make your mistakes. Thankfully, Monty Cook Games is pretty cool people. So if you make a mistake and you correct it, you're good in their book.
They've been pretty forgiving. Most of the gaming companies, I say this with a little asterisk side of it, but most of the gaming companies I find in generally are pretty good at community stuff. If someone's willing to show that, like, oh shit, I screwed up, let me fix this, and you're not just like, I don't care, it's out anyways.
Here's a big thing for you. Just we're all human. We all must make mistakes, but in general, in your heart, the best way to get ahead, I won't even say get ahead, but to swim in the waters of this industry is simply don't be a jerk.
Yes.
Just be a good person to you and everybody around you. I have a personal philosophy that we are all our ambassadors. Whatever you are, you represent that to other people. And I'm not saying that's how I should judge how other people act, but that's how I should judge how I should present myself. And so I'm always trying not to be a jerk.
And whether it's, I find in this RPG community, whether it's like a little nobody like me, or like you were talking to like someone well known in the space, like, you know, someone from Wizards of the Coast, or maybe like Matt Colville, or like someone whose name is a little bit bigger. In the end, we're all just a bunch of nerds that wrote some shit down on a piece of paper that we thought was cool, and like, that's it. Like, we're all just the same type of people for the most part, barring some horrible individuals out there, which, yeah, horror stories exist. But yeah, for the most part, we're all just like the random nerds that wrote stuff down on the piece, like a little napkin, and be like, "This'll be cool," and then that's what you get into. And awesome. So
We've all been there.
Yeah, we're like, don't put them on either as a statue. Don't put them on a pedestal. Don't consider them like anything other than that. They're just like a person that's just making some make-believe fun stuff. Now, you dropped some great content, and I imagine it's difficult to get to the point to go full-time with it. Obviously, a lot of people, you like, struggle with it, still have to have your day jobs. What kind of challenges are you finding is the hardest to try and do with that balance between the different aspects of your life as a content developer, while still having to do your day job stuff?
Well, I've discovered that what kind of day job you have can really hurt or help what you're doing. James Intercosto is in TV production, and it has a lot of hurry up and wait to it as a job. So on his wait periods, that's where he's made a lot of his content. He's, you know, the right-hand man to Matt Colville right now. For me, especially when I had that big heyday of a lot of stuff, cranking a lot of stuff, I was working 3/12s. So I'd have 4-day weekends.
Oh.
And I would have, you know, and I also didn't have a special person in my life. So I had a lot more free time. Now I have a 40-hour-a-week job. It's 8 hours a day. And, you know, I have to spend time with the people that are important to me. So I don't have, you know, means a little less sleep sometimes. And, you know, working on the weekends. But I'm lucky that the person that I have, they respect what I do. So, you know, as long as I'm in the room with the keyboard, that helps. But then again, talking to person, watching TV, trying to write, not a great combination either for doing anything in a fast mode. It happens, it does, but not as fast as it could.
I tried that for a little while. I'm like, all right, I got my significant other, we got some things, gonna multitask. No. It doesn't work that way. I schedule a time, like Mondays is like, I've told her, like, Mondays is my me day, and then like Wednesdays I'll like edit during the day and stuff, and then like I've got it scheduled specific times so that they'll know. and then they're like, all right, and then these times we're going to spend our time together. This is going to be us time. Don't mix and match.
Well, also during my lunch period, I have a little notebook. And sometimes the magic is not even just, you know, I'm squeezing in some time that's not, but, you know, spent with loved ones in TV, but I'm away from the freaking internet. And I'm just writing longhand, which is ironic because I spent so much of my time trying to get myself up to speed to really type well, which has turned out to be just a better benefit for my day job. Because the longhand, I mean, I'm just kind of in a zone because there's nothing distracting me. I do kind of a bullet journal style, which is a little more fun than just kind of like writing things down. Bullet style, you're kind of letting yourself kind of doodle things in the corner and play around because you're writing more on a grid or on a dot grid versus just lined ruled paper. So you can do a map in a heartbeat because you're on a grid paper sort of.
Yeah, I think I got to get into the habit of keeping a note, like a journal note thing near me, so I can start doing that. Because there's been plenty of times of like, this is a great idea. I'll remember it when I get home, and then I get home and I'm like, shit, old man brain. What was going on?
You've got a pencil. You've got a napkin. You've got scrap paper.
Yeah.
You've got Post-it notes. You've got a phone with a note app to it. You can even dictate to. No excuses anymore for writers.
Yeah. I gotta get better at that. But the phone helps me a little bit. But yeah, especially with my disability, I can't. Sometimes I'm stuck in bed, and just having a notebook beside the bed would probably be a good idea. I think at this point.
Definitely. Sure. Like I said, get yourself one of those, something that has graph paper in it, not necessarily all graph paper, or like the dot grid. You just write across the lines as if it's when you're doing ruled paper, and like with ruled paper, and then if you want to bang out a map, boom, already there.
Now, obviously, you're, as we've covered, a writer and creator in the RPG space, so you've played a fair amount of games, and different types of games at that, by the looks of it. Now, I find the genre of the games that a player loves the most really tells a lot about them. So, what's your favorite type of genre or like setting type of thing to play in when you get a chance?
To play in? I mean, I'm a little bit of a slut. I'll play any sort of game at least once or twice, whatever genre it is. I've done a lot of fantasy, and some science fiction, and I used to run a horror game. I'd run horror more than I would play it. So I've kind of done all the big genres that you can do in RPGs. Probably fantasy, just because there's more. If I'm not running it, that's what people are pretty much offering to run for me. Mm-hmm. But I've been blessed in the last 3 years to have the same group of players. I started most of them on Cypher. They hadn't played anything else. They just like, what is this thing, this Dungeons and Dragons thing? I said, this is something close. Just give this a try. And, I took the challenge of not only like having them enjoy it, but also teaching them to game master. So in that 3 years, I've gotten to do modern day horror, fantasy, Deadlands, what else? Science fiction, and enjoyed all of it.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I think Cypher, I had introduced a whole bunch of people like over the last year or two RPGs, over the last 2 years really. The Panini really kind of helped us like online, being like, everyone's bored, let's do something. I wish I had started them with Cypher instead of D&D. Not that D&D was the wrong way to go. Like they're like, I've started the Friendo Discord that I'm on. They went from none of them having played D&D to there's like 8 games a week being run in that Discord now, all because of like me and one other guy, Bad Hair Gaming, just like introducing them to this stuff. But I find Cypher is a nice in between like super streamlined, light, and super crunchy. And I kind of wish I had started there, because like I like other games too. Like Fate is another one of my favorite RPG systems. You can be really creative with it. But when I tried to take my hardcore D&D players and we tried to play Fate, they were so lost. It was not an easy transition for them whatsoever. But I feel like if we had started with a little bit more like Cypher, which has a bit of elements of a few different things in there, the bit more creative, the players can have a little more almost GM power, then I feel like it would have been an easier transition. For sure.
Well, I have discovered the weird thing about Cypher is the less the players are locked into what a role-playing game is, the quicker they pick it up. Mm-hmm. If they're very locked into, this is what a role-playing game is, and it needs to have hit points, and needs to do this, that, and the other, and you teach them Cypher, Cypher has too many twists. It just keeps knocking them around, and their brain just goes to jelly. I literally said, they've told me, I don't know how to do the math in Cypher. I'm like, the math is 10 times easier than like all the different feats you're adding up for Pathfinder.
Yeah.
I mean, just an example of extremes, not poking at Pathfinder. And they're like, but you're like 2 + 2 + 2 + 3 + 3 + 4 + 4, and they're like, plus I just rolled 20, I have a 47. That was a little math involved in there. And with Cypher, your math is minusing, just doing single digit substitution and just one multiplication, and then that's it. But they got, because this is how it is, they just got themselves confused. They're like, I need an abacus to understand what's going on in each of my pools. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, I find you don't even really have to do math in it per se. Like with my groups, we've gotten lucky. We run almost exclusively in using the Foundry virtual tabletop, so it's doing all the stuff for us. We just click which buttons, like if we want to do effort or anything, and it just figures it out for us anyways. But even in person, like if someone was struggling, it would be really easy just to write numbers 1 through 10 and give them like a D6 and just be like, move this up or down as you decide you want to like apply effort or do things, and then that'll let you know. Nice and easy.
Exactly. In fact, my last group I was with, one guy couldn't get it, and he flipped everything over to make it all ads. And he insisted that, no, this is the way I have to do it. And I'm like, so I was like running 2 games at once, doing the regular game for everybody else. And for him, I had to invert everything because he was just not having it. He just did not want to do it that way. Everything's better if we just make it all ads. And I'm like, but what about the zero then? You have to tell me how many benefits you're throwing in there and assets then. I don't want to do that either. I'm like, okay.
No. As long as you have fun in the end, that's all that matters.
Yeah, well, I think his frustration is I'm the type of GM, I don't tell you what your level is. I mean, it looks like it's really tough. It looks like it's really easy. I
do that too.
6 or a 5 or a 3. Specifically because I knew for him, if he knew that, he would just do all the perfect math. He didn't have to.
I have a lot of.
Yeah, he wanted perfect information, and I wasn't going to give it to him.
I have in some of my Cypher games, not both of them, but in one of my Cypher games, I've got some like old school players that they're very good at math. One of them's actually considered a math prodigy, and they want to very tactically figure everything out. So yeah, my first game that I ran of Cypher, I did tell them all the numbers, and I found that they just like tactically managed, I'm going to apply effort now because I know I need it, blah blah blah. And yeah, these days I'm just like, this looks really hard, do what you're gonna do. And way better. I know like you can do it either way, but I never tell them. It's very rare that I tell them the numbers these days, like super rare. I just give them the general.
For me, that's like a big dial for Cypher, like easy mode and then let's play.
Yeah. So you mentioned about running the games versus playing the games and stuff. Do you have a preferred seat, the GM's chair versus the players?
Preferred seat?
Like, do you prefer to being the GM or being a player per se?
Well, I've enjoyed for Cypher. I haven't. Give me a second. Yeah, I've enjoyed both. I think after a while when I play Cypher, I kind of want to start running it because then I start thinking about the things I can do, and it starts becoming part of the job. Oh, newsflash, by the way. If at some point you sit down at your gaming design stuff and you go, yeah, time to get started on this job. Congratulations, you're there. If it no longer has that luster and it's something you got to roll up your sleeves and work on a little bit, now it's really, you're now actually a game designer.
Yeah, because it's not just like you're slapping some cool shit together, which isn't bad, but you're taking the time, you're doing your research, you're figuring out the details, then you're getting in and you're going through the words and be like, oh, there should be a comma here. Like, you're actually making it polished.
Exactly. And I think part of it also is I enjoy playing because I'm forever. I used to be the forever GM, so I'm still in the I'm actually playing. But that depends a little bit on the game master themselves. Some game masters, I enjoy it better than others, but I mean that's just being a player, right?
I struggled a bit. It's only recently I've started having people willing to run a game for me. I still have yet to get someone out of my core group to run anything but D&D for me, unfortunately. But I'm willing to get them to at least run a game for me. But I was the forever GM basically since the late 90s, early 2000s. So I've been the GM the majority of the time, which is fine by me. I actually normally prefer that seat. So when I finally got to sit down as a player, I had a hard time letting go in some ways. I'd just been in that seat for too damn long. I had to leave myself notes.
You admit that. A lot of GMs can't admit that. They become horrible players because they can't admit that they just need to let things go. My flaw I have with 5e is, as a player, is 5e offers a whole bunch of awesome, cool options and races to play. And most of my people that would run for me, no, they would be like, no, you can't be a Warforged. No, you can't be a changeling. No, you can't be an intelligent rabbit person.
I've had that a couple of times now. Thankfully, most of the people in our group were very much in the whole RPG Aikido thing. It's just like me and at least 2 other GMs now, which I feel like I've trained. They even have said the same thing. They're like, "You're the one that got me to try this out." I've always been the type that just like, "What do you want to do? Yeah, whatever. It's all. Throw what you've got at me, and I'll figure it out and go with it." And
Cypher helps you do that so well.
It does. It does.
On both ends, as a player and as a GM.
Because one of the biggest benefits as a GM for Cypher, and I've kind of touched on this in my other videos for anyone wondering, but not really like come out and said a lot of it, but you in D&D or other systems, Shadowrun, Cyberpunk, what have you, there's generally there's a lot of things that you got to know in order to master the system. I find there's really only 3 things you need to know in Cypher for the most part: how to count from 1 to 10 as a difficulty, know your plot, and just how GM intrusions work, like when you want to sort of meddle with things. And that's basically
the way I
it.
phrase those things is that Cypher is asymmetrical, and the GM side is streamlined and improv friendly.
Yes, very much so. Yeah, because you're not playing with the same rules.
You can roll with it.
And
or if they don't show up, you can roll it. Or if some of them don't show up, you can roll with it versus I planned this at this certain challenge rating and now I have to adjust.
Oh, yeah, I've said that with my players several times. Someone will be like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I can't make it out tonight." And I'm like, "That's fine, we're doing Cypher. It's good. Whether it's 1 person or 10 people, I'll figure it out." And to me, the largest benefit, and sometimes I miss rolling dice, but the largest benefit is the fact that the players roll all of the dice. So you can do things like a large scale combat. If you do that in D&D, I've got some other DMs and stuff that they'll run a combat with 20 to 30 monsters in Dungeons and Dragons, and then the players are just sitting there watching the game master play with himself. So where in Cypher,
to adopt Savage Worlds, that's what they need to do.
Yeah. Whereas in Cypher, because the players are doing everything, whether they're being attacked or attacking or jumping over stuff or pulling levers or what have you, the players are rolling all of the dice. So no matter what is happening, it's the players that are doing all of that. The GM can just focus on telling the story bits around it. It doesn't matter how big or small your action sequences or conflicts or whatever they are. It's the players that get to they don't feel like they're just sitting there waiting for the GM to be like, "All right, now you can do something."
Yeah, when it's the monster turn, that means I just pick a player.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations, you're going again in reverse.
So you release basically all of your content digitally, which in today's world is kind of the preferred method for most of your groups, especially new players. But as someone that's been around for a while with the digital world of virtual tabletops and PDFs on tablets, even groups in person using digital dice despite being at the same table, how do you feel about the way this has gone in our modern day RPG stuff? Is this a good direction, bad direction, kind of a mixed bag?
So a couple of things on that. One, with community content, that's your only choice. And that's probably something we could have covered earlier. You're PDF. You're not going to be a hardback book. You can't publish yourself. Unless you happen to be a really big friend of Wizards of the Coast, and they'll be like, "Yeah, sure, you can publish a thing." But no, most of it is your stuff's going to be PDF. The other one is, in case you didn't know, there has been a perfect storm between the collapse of just-in-time infrastructure, thanks to the pandemic, a couple of weird winter freezes on trees, and just some, other internet. And then, guess where we could get a lot of wood for paper? Russia. We have had a huge spike in paper prices. And unless something corrects itself, which it doesn't look like anything's going to slow that down soon, paper prices are still going to go up. So those of us, and if I could just take my laptop and tootle it over to my living room, you'll see that I have tons of books, And I'll tell you, that's like 1/10 of the books I used to own. I've gotten rid of more books than I probably actually own right now. Paper's going to be, and printing's going to be a challenge, and it already is if you aren't in the industry and haven't been hearing the scuttlebutt. And this is going to touch more on my future Kickstarter, in that I'm not going to be printing books. I'm going to do print on demand, which means people will back us, but instead of getting a book from us, they'll get it through DriveThruRPG, and they'll be printing it. And I think that's probably a good thing to do if you're a smaller person in the industry. By the way, hint, most of the gaming industry is small.
Yeah.
Most of us are 2 to 3 people and a part-time job. In fact, some of the full-timers about that actually run role-playing game companies that aren't Wizards of the Coast or connected to Asmodee, their day job may be the story writer for a video game company, and then their night job is being a company founder and running a company.
Yeah. Once again, that's kind of how Matt Colville's did his thing.
And until you make $1 million with Kickstarter. But yeah, the guys who do Savage Worlds, Pinnacle Entertainment, Shane Hensley, his day job is he's in the video game industry, and his night job is he runs all. In fact, it's like the company keeps that person afloat until they get their next video game gig.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I totally derailed myself.
It's okay,
paper, right?
Yeah, it was about the print versus digital and all of that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, print on demand is going to be pretty. I think like I said, especially for smaller companies, that's probably a smart thing to do. DriveThruRPG does it. Better yet, DriveThruRPG also lets you split out royalties for your projects. So you have a third party, totally third disinterested party that will handle your royalties and print your books.
And I even though I'm one of the elder gamers, I guess, around right now, the sort of mid-elder, whatever, been here for decades now at this point. I actually kind of prefer digital myself these days anyways. I'm in much the same boat. I still have shelves of books. I still love my books. But I also have a couple boxes of RPG books behind me I'm about to get rid of because they're just collecting dust. It's a lot of space. It's stuff he's like, no, don't do it. And some of them are second edition books I've had for decades. But I want to simplify the life, less clutter, less stuff. And honestly, digital is a little easier. If I'm just on my tablet, I can just swipe to the PDF, click the bookmark for the right page, and I found what I needed. Or I can hit the search if I want to search for a specific term. I don't have to spend 20 to 30 minutes to look up a rule when I can just be click, click, click. There it is. And yeah, it's just got a convenience factor in a lot of ways.
I was at a writers convention, and they had a huge program, but they also had a PDF, and this was 10 years ago, and I was on a Chromebook first, because I didn't have an iPad at that time. And thanks to that search function, I was getting there. I was leading our little crew all over the place. They're still flipping through the book, and I'm room F23 over here. And then on top of that, speaking of our new world order, our new world, we have, you can't bring anything on a plane hardly anymore. This, as when I go to cons and I want to run demos and things, this has become my RPG book. My iPad. It has the adventures in it. It has, the core books in it, and makes it much easier than trying to tote around, things that are going to break me out into having, degenerative discs later in life.
Yeah, no, it's a lot easier. Yes, okay, sometimes I miss the smell and the feel of having the book, or when you first get that book and you get to read it cover to cover, crack it open. But I've moved on in a lot of ways. Doesn't mean I don't buy them. I have both the revised, you're holding it up right now. I have both the original Cypher rulebook, the revised Cypher rulebook. I've got a bunch of other ones. I've got Tales from the Loop over there, and all my cyberpunk books, and I've got a variety that I still have. I'll pick up niche things now and again. but I find I don't
Sometimes I'm very
need.
trying to just pick up a book because it's effing beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Like,
part of the
I'll
reason
pick-
I originally picked up Tales from the Loop. Like afterwards, is the whole '80s kids on bikes thing. Yeah, that's going to draw me in as well. The member berries were strong, but the art is amazing. Just look up the Tales from the Loop. His art book is also, the first one is named Tales from the Loop, and then Things from the Flood and stuff. Just beautiful, and that's why I picked up the book at first. Yeah. It's good shit.
And that's a nice little segue because they had the same sort of thinking I did for The Mysterious Flesh Pit. I had an artist who made a ton of awesome art. How could you not put a role-playing game?
Sometimes that is what inspires you. You may not have a cool rule, you may not have a cool story. Maybe just there was like this one picture or a group of pictures, and you're like, this needs to be a world. I'm making this a thing.
That's how Deadlands happened. Shane saw some really awesome undead cowboy art from Brahm. Brahm.
Yeah.
And by the time he got home, he had the whole thing planned out.
And I mean, the Western undead feel. Oh yeah, he can't say no to that. All right, so I normally, time is getting away on us. I normally end the videos by we go through a couple of questions from peoples on the internets and try to answer them together and see what we do. We'll get through at least one here. We'll see how long it takes us, because man, an hour has flown by already. Jeez.
I'll take that as a compliment.
We always get so lost. I'm always like, I'm going to try and keep it close to an hour, and then sure enough, we always get sidetracked. That's just how it goes with, I think, gamers in the RPG scene.
Good sidetrack, though. Good sidetrack.
So, wow, this is a hard name to say. Yasusuna96 says, normally each combat that I run, it will have some sort of boss encounter, 1 or 2 units, some melee units, some ranged units, and a spellcaster. However, I felt as if it slowed down combat a bit too much as I have cycled through so many units. How much is too much when it comes to combat in RPGs? I'm assuming you're probably playing 5th edition, and I think we kind of...
At least D&D.
I think we kind of touched on this already in D&D. There's a too much limit. I would say. What are your thoughts on this so far?
I wouldn't say 5th edition because 5th edition is a little faster than some of the other editions, but definitely a D&D thing.
Yeah, it could be Pathfinder 3.5 or something even.
Like 4th edition, maybe.
Maybe.
I
Yeah.
have my nephew playing 4th edition. I'm like, where are you even getting the rules? I guess it's all PDF stuff. So yeah, I mean. Sometimes it's a little bit of a challenge because you might have like a min-maxer in your group that you have to give some special consideration to compared to the rest of the people who just wanted to put together some cool dudes to, murder hobo around versus the killing machine. But yeah, depending on you could also look up some D&D rules where they have minions. So those other extra people that aren't the wizard and the boss do fun things, but aren't like, don't take forever. I think 13th Age has minion rules. I'm sure another or 2 different versions of D&D do.
4th edition, I knew for a fact did.
Did? Yep.
Yeah.
I don't think Dungeon Crawl Classics does. Another one, again, especially in this also, here's another one. Are you using miniatures or not? If you're not using miniatures, that combat goes by much faster. I can tell you that doing numerous demos for 5e as Esper Genesis, if you use miniatures, you're moving them around, just the physical act of moving them around and people kind of getting more into a tactical mode as they look at the map slows things down versus if we do Theater of the Mind, I'll be like, oh, I need to kind of start dragging this out. This thing is only 2 hours long without the map and going through a combat that way. And again, Savage Worlds is a role-playing game that is very miniatures friendly and having they're saying for Savage Worlds, they're like, don't do more than 40 miniatures.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
In fact, their idea, they have little feats called edges where your mini squad that your individual PC controls gets benefits because of that. Because they assume that it's like 1 player character plus 2 or 3 of their minions plus miniatures on the other side.
The other suggestions I can really give as well is one, start grouping them. You could easily just beef up one of the guys and say it's a group of them instead. So you're replacing like 5-6 actions with like one dude. Just like maybe give him some extra utility. If it's like a 5th edition thing, for instance, give him like legendary actions or something, so that it's like he has extra stuff to do without taking up entire turns. Try to keep, lessening the amount of creatures is important as well, but be efficient and organized. Make sure people are ready for their turn. Make sure you've sort of pre-read everything, so you're not like going through the stat blocks being like, what do they do again? If it's going to be a large, complicated thing, make sure everyone is ready for that. If we get to someone's turn and they're like, I don't know, be like, all right, I'm going to get it back to you. Figure it out. Move on.
As a side note, as we both know, Cypher makes turning a thing into a mob pretty quick and easy.
Yes, it does.
And then there's also the other classic of maybe when you use less miniatures, your fight that you're having with your crew and the bad guys is just the pivotal mini fight amongst the whole battle.
Yes.
And how they do will tweak other things. See, this is another thing that I have to remember. I've been doing this so long that I forget that things that I just, have in my back pocket are new to a lot of people. And I need to go, hello.
That's the thing. When you've been doing it for so many years, and then you're like, oh yeah, not everyone knows this stuff.
And then I don't judge. And here's the important part. Don't judge someone because they don't know a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not cool. Because I've seen a lot of people, well, duh, you do this. No, it's not a no duh. They're new.
Yeah, that was one of the big important things, because I know we had touched on this earlier. When I finally got to start playing in games again, and I started realizing you're not the GM, you got to shut the hell up. Like, I even made a sticky note for it and everything. And especially since a lot of them were newer GMs, and it's like, yeah, that's not how you would run it, but that's okay. You just go with it. And yeah, it was a challenge. It took me a little while, and there was at one point I apologized to one of the GMs. I'm like, I think I'm being a bad player. I'm sorry about that. And yeah, I guess I'm getting off topic now. But yeah, hopefully some of those tips will help you. If you ever see this, Yasutsuna 96 looks like you were from Reddit contact, actually. So hopefully you see this, and all of those things that we touched on should help smooth things over. I don't know what system you're playing in, you didn't mention, but hopefully it sounds like it's probably one of the crunchier, more tactical systems. So just try those things, see if you can help out. So we got one more here. Let's try a second one. Sushi Thief. That one's easier to say. I am very excited for my first real DM session coming up. Oh, congratulations. I've played a little in the past and have been told I'm decent at voices and being in character. But out of everyone in the group, I am the least experienced of playing of all of them. How do I work with players that are so much more seasoned than I am?
So for my 2 cents, this may or may not help. A big chunk of being a solid DM is confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're like, oh, great. You tell me confidence, but I'm the little guy here with the big fish, but you're still the GM. You're still setting the ground rules. You're still doing session 0. You can just, for your level of, making you help you feel confident, you can say, hey guys, I'm new. So, if you guys have some advice on helping me, that's great. But especially don't be jerks about it. Because I know, some players, and especially when they get excited, it's their way or their highway because they have it locked in their head what they think the thing is. But you got to be firm, and just like I said, tell them up front, hey, I'll run for you, but I'm new, so you got to cut me some slack. Can't be jerks about it.
I find,
and if they are jerks about it, call them on it. It's okay. And the other one I have is you're probably one of your first urges is to try to do everything in game. So if someone's being a jerk, you I wouldn't say you're being passive aggressive, but you try to show them or do an object lesson or try to correct that. When actually it's just faster, easier, ironically smoother to just time out the game and say, hey, we got this issue. Let's solve this here and now as adults at the table, and then get back into the game. So yeah, the whole urge to try to solve things and keep massive amounts of continuity that, or trying to avoid breaking the immersion. If there's something that's like, rubbing everybody raw or being an issue, it's just 10 times easier. Stop, talk about it.
Especially if they're seasoned players, like they should hopefully by this point realize it is a game still in the end. And I find seasoned players. And I find that one of it's some of the best advice that you can really give in this point is a lot of the issues that I see in like RPG horror stories or anything like that are not resolved with anything to do with the game. They're resolved with the fact that you just gotta talk to each other as people. They're just other people sitting on the table with you. Just some other dudettes and in-betweens, and that you just gotta say, like, just talk to them, let them know, be real with them. Hopefully if they are as experienced as you say, then they're going to be forgiving about it. And if they're like the old school gatekeeper types, then I mean, good luck. There's not much you're going to be able to do anyways.
Find a new group.
Find a new group in that case. So hopefully you've got people that are a little more understanding, and there's plenty of tips and tricks videos out there. I mean, I've got a few of my own. There's some other content creators, like we mentioned, Matt Colville. Ginny D is another. She's brilliant. I love some of the tips and tricks that she gives, especially for newer GMs and stuff like that. Just search for them online. Little things like, okay, I realize this is wrong, but we're gonna figure out what the right rules are later. Let's just like go with the flow and we'll figure it out. Like it doesn't have to come to a grinding halt every time unless there's a major issue, like he mentioned. And yeah, just go with the flow, and it's okay to fail. You're going to fail. You're going to blunder. I'm doing this for decades, and all the time I'm still screwing stuff up. And it's okay. You just, once again, RPG Aikido, as the shit comes in at you, just go with it. Take it and go with it. Yeah. Well, we are doing pretty good. Not too far past the time. Further than normal, but not too far. So thank you for being on the show. Once again, all sorts of links in the doobly-doo below for Ganza Gaming will be in the description, from the social medias to the locations about books and all of that good stuff. So you'll want to check it out. Before we go, are there any other exciting upcoming projects or anything specifically you want to sort of plug in here as a little hype, as our last thoughts? Well,
I kind of already did that earlier in the front, but
plug it again. Let's go.
Plug it again. All right. I've got official authorization to do that. All right. So this time I'm going to go in chronological order. Right now I'm working on a Cypher kind of gritty Last of Us, Resident Evil style post-apocalyptic, zombie creature world called Bloom to Earth. If you like those type of games and you like that type of fiction, you'll enjoy this.
I really do.
Yeah, and I also throw in a little Mad Max for shits and giggles.
Yes.
Can I say that? And then I have two fantasy worlds I'm kind of getting together and kind of doing. One is a very Points of Civilization, old school kind of at heart, in that you can drop things in, drop things out. In theory, you could do sandbox sort of stuff with it. It's called the Emperor's Road, and the setup is the one bit of ancient civilization that's still running around is a huge network of roads that are magically warded against supernatural critters. So when you're on the road, you only have to worry about the evil of humanity. But once you start getting away from the road, things get weirder and stranger, which can kind of explain why you have a safe zone, and then as you get away from your safe zone, things get weird. So I have adventures in those. They're actually for Cypher and for Fantasy Age. They're called Changing Seasons. Is the name of the two adventures I have. Eventually, I should have four, one for each season. Still kind of a vague which season season is going on with which. And then the other one is Solar Sails, which was going to be kind of a 5e Spelljammer until I found out, just in time, that Wizards of the Coast was going to do Spelljammer. And went, no, okay, so that one's going to probably be more Cypher-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in some ways, those sort of games can lend themselves to Cypher much easier than 5e. I'm sorry, well, D&D in general. 5e, obviously, knocking out of the park to try to get things to work that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, last but definitely not least, is the Kickstarter next year for Mysterious Flesh Pit National Park. What the heck is that, Chris? Some of you may be, your minds may be going to the gutter. What it is the National Flesh Park Pit is a awesome art project done by Trevor Roberts. For the last 3 years, he's created this alternate reality where a Texas oilman discovers a huge organic creature under the crust of the earth. And just like, you know, what you do, you sell tickets to go see the living caverns. And then he sells it to a company, and then the company takes it off to the government, so it becomes a national park. It is cosmic horror meets bureaucracy satire. If you know enjoyed the Laundry Files from Charles Stross, this is like right up your alley.
I love that. I cannot wait to try that out. I run some of the most oddball games, and that is right up my alley.
Yep.
So I cannot wait.
I'm going to probably throw a little bit of paranoia flair in there. But yeah, so the Ballooned Earth, I'm going to be in a couple of months. Hopefully, I'll be putting out the playtest rules for that. Some of those rules may show up somewhere else in a Kickstarter. So if you're a little tempted, or you want to put a little feedback, you might want to keep your eyes open for the Ballooned Earth playtest stuff coming up in a couple of months.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you again for being on QEDTalks. Yet another super successful QEDTalks. I normally say, I'll try to edit it down to an hour, but as usual, there's not going to be much to edit out. So it's going to be slightly longer than an hour. Anyone that's still watching after an hour, which is probably most people watching this, congratulations, you got some entertainment. But thank you again for being on QEDTalks.
I hope.
Oh, here's hoping. But yeah, it's been amazing. Thank you for being on. We've been trying to get this together for a while, but then we've both had days where we're just like, I'm feeling lazy today. So we finally got it on. It's all good. And as always, my links as well are all in the links, you know, the doobly-doo below. Please like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Hit the little bell icon. I'm getting ever so closer to getting to that monetized mark. Just that little need that bit more. Come on, people. So tell your friends, tell your family, get your dog signed up on there. Anyone you got going on. So thank you very much. And as always, stay healthy, stay safe, and have a good one, eh?